My dad called me a loser and said I couldn't attend the family dinner. No one of relatives want to see you here. He giggled. I smiled and left the family chat. First, I cancelled all the payments that were important to them, and what I did next, they couldn't even imagine. It was a boring Thursday, the kind where the hours creep by. I was sitting at my desk, half watching the loading bar of a system update, when my phone buzzed on the desk. It was a message from my father. Don't bother coming on Saturday. None of your relatives want you there. There was a laughing emoji at the end. One of those little details you don't forget years later. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I laughed a little under my breath. Not because it was funny. It wasn't like things were good between us. I mean, after what they pulled a few months ago, there was no reason to pretend we were a happy, smiling family. I left my 2 kids with them, just for 3 days. It was supposed to be easy. I had a last-minute business trip, and they had always begged for more time with their grandchildren. Instead, they packed up and left town for a music festival. I left an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old alone in a house for 4 days with a pile of frozen dinners and no working thermostat. When I got home, the place was a disaster. My youngest had a fever, and my oldest was scared to death. I called them selfish. Told them they didn't deserve to be called grandparents. I said things I don't regret and things I probably should have said a long time ago. But the one thing I didn't do, the thing I regret most now, was not calling the police. I wanted to protect my kids from the nightmare of being dragged through a CPS case, and honestly, part of me still had this pathetic thread of hope that maybe they would feel guilty enough to make amends. They didn't. And now here I was, months later, uninvited from a family dinner for my aunt and uncle who were coming back from Europe. They'd been gone 2 years, and this was supposed to be a big welcome home party. I opened up the family group chat. At first, it looked like a normal flurry of photos and messages. Someone posted pictures from the restaurant. Someone else joked about bringing too much wine. There were even memes about jet lag. But not a single message from me. No replies to me. No tags. It was like I didn't exist. I kept scrolling and found it. A message from my mom, sent a few days earlier. Hey everyone! John decided not to come, so don't worry about saving him a seat. Let's make it a positive night, red heart. Decided not to come. Like I had bowed out. Like I had abandoned them. No one questioned it. No one called me. No one even texted. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. I just smiled, closed the chat, and left the group. And that's when something clicked inside of me in a place I didn't even know existed. They had gotten so used to me fixing their mistakes that they had forgotten whose name was on half the things they depended on. Their cell phone plans? Still bundled with mine, back when I was trying to save them money. Their internet? I set it up, and it was still routed through my old account. Their RV insurance? My name got them the discount. Even their stupid streaming services Netflix, Disney+, Amazon, Hulu all under my cards because they couldn't figure out how to set up autopay. I cancelled it all in 15 minutes. No warning. No explanation. It felt good, but not good enough. Because they thought that was it. They thought they had all the power. They thought the rest of the family was clapping for them behind closed doors. They had no idea what was coming. Not from me. Not from the family they thought they had on their side. Not from the people who were about to realize how badly they'd been lied to. After I shut down their entire digital lives, I waited. No warning, no explanation, just silence. They called within the hour. I let it ring. Then came the text, short ones at first, like, "What happened to the internet?" and "Can't make calls, something's wrong with the phones." Then longer ones, more panicked. "John, did you cancel something?" I didn't answer. The voicemails came next, mostly from my mom. I didn't listen. I didn't need to. I knew the pattern. They'd work themselves into a frenzy, then turn the story around, like they always did. Make it about my attitude. Accuse me of being dramatic. Pretend they didn't deserve it. What they didn't know was that this time they weren't dealing with the same son who had always taken the high road. I didn't want apologies. I wanted consequences. So I started with a message. Not to them, to my aunt and uncle who were coming back from Europe. "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I'm not going to the dinner on Saturday. Wasn't invited. Hope your trip was great though, and I really hope the dinner is great. No venom. Just enough honesty to plant the seed. My uncle responded an hour later. What do you mean you weren't invited? I just told him the truth. That opened the floodgates. My cousin Mark texted next. Are you serious? I asked if you were coming and they said you had other stuff going on. Dude. Aunt Lisa sent a voice message that I didn't even open, but then followed up with, John. I feel sick. I just read the group chat again. Your mom said you were skipping it to avoid conflict. I can't believe they lied. Apparently they made it sound like I was still angry, emotionally unstable, and refusing to let go of the past. I wasn't surprised that's how they spun everything. So I laid it out. The real story. What happened to my children? The fever. The empty fridge. The dog they left in the yard, he died 2 days after I got back. He'd been left without water. I told them I'd never forgive myself for not reporting it, and that if anyone else told me the same story about their parents, I'd call CPS without blinking an eye. No one defended them. Mark said he didn't trust them anymore. That if they could do this to my kids, who they always said they loved more than anything, then his kids weren't safe either. Lisa was furious. She said she felt like she'd been used. Lied to. And the best news came from my uncle. If I had known any of this, I wouldn't have let them organize anything. This isn't over. They thought they were isolating me. What they were really doing was drawing a line in the sand, and most of the family was on my side. So I made one last move before dinner. I sent a quiet little message to another group chat. A smaller one. Just the relatives who had reached out to me. I'm not going. But you all deserve to know the truth before you drink a toast. And I told them everything. Not angrily. Not like I was looking for sympathy. Just plainly, like someone who was finally tired of covering for people who never covered for him. I asked for nothing in return. I didn't ask them to boycott dinner. I didn't ask for drama. But what I did say was this. If anyone asks why I'm not there, please don't lie for them. That was it. The dinner was 2 days away. I wasn't going. I had no interest in sitting across from people who laughed while they cut me out. But I had a feeling it wasn't going to go the way they planned. Saturday night, while the family dinner unfolded without me, I stayed home with my kids. We made popcorn. We watched some old Disney movies. I didn't even look at my phone for a couple of hours. I figured if something important happened, I'd hear about it eventually. I wasn't expecting the flood of messages that hit my phone just after 9. The first was from Mark. Bro, it's chaos. You wouldn't believe it if you were here. Then my sister. A short, brutal text. You made the right decision to stay away. I sat back and just let it come. It was like watching a slow train wreck from my couch. From what everyone told me later, the night began exactly as my parents had hoped. They were holding court at the end of the long table at Antonio's, that fake fancy Italian place they always bragged about going to. They smiled, laughed too loudly, dropped little jabs about how hard family drama can be, and pretended to be above it all. They thought they owned the story. At first, everyone played along. Raised glasses, toasted my aunt and uncle. Talked about travel, work, kids. But underneath, you could feel it the way you can feel the change in the air before a thunderstorm. No one was comfortable. People kept looking at the empty chair where I would have sat. They kept glancing at each other, wondering if anyone else knew what they knew now that I hadn't chosen not to come. As my mother had told them. That I had been cut out. Lied about. Finally, it was Uncle Steve who broke the dam. He stood up with his wine glass, looked directly at my parents and said, It's too bad John couldn't be here. But after everything that's happened, I can't blame him. Silence. My dad laughed nervously and mumbled something about personal problems that shouldn't ruin a party. My mom immediately started talking over him, saying, Some people just hold grudges. But no one was listening. Steve put down his glass and told the room exactly what happened. The real story. The kids. The 4 days alone. The dead dog. The lies they told after. I wasn't there to see it, but Mark said it was like a fog lifting from the table. You could see the expressions change one by one. Shock. Disgust. Anger. Lisa chimed in. She said she felt sick when she found out. Said she didn't understand how anyone could treat their own grandchildren like this. One of my cousins, a quiet one, the kind who usually stays out of things, asked my parents straight out if it was true. He asked if they really left 2 kids under 10 alone without even checking in. My mom started to cry. My dad raised his voice. They both started blaming me, blaming stress, blaming poor communication, blaming how sensitive kids are these days. No one bought it. No one defended them. It got so ugly that people started putting down their forks and standing up. Some didn't even finish their food. Mark told me he caught part of my dad snapping at Uncle Steve, calling him a traitor for taking John's side. Lisa said she overheard my mother muttering under her breath that she wished John had never been born. That hit harder than anything, even though I wasn't there to hear it. By the end of the night, half the family had left early. The rest just sat there, awkward and miserable, until it was too unbearable to pretend. Those who stayed didn't stay for my parents. They stayed to say goodbye to Steve and his wife, out of respect. When it was all over, my parents sat at that long, empty table, surrounded by cold plates and half-finished glasses of wine, and looked around at the disaster they had created. No one rushed over to comfort them. No one offered to drive them home. No one pretended it was just a misunderstanding. For the first time in their lives, they were alone. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. They did it all by themselves. The next morning I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. Missed calls from my dad. Texts from my mom, long, ranting paragraphs. A few guilt bombs thrown in for good measure, the classic. We're still your parents no matter what. Garbage they loved to use when all else failed. I didn't respond. I didn't even open most of them. Instead, I called Aunt Lisa. She answered the first ring and wasted no time. "John," she said, "whatever you're feeling right now, just know, none of us are on their side." She told me everything. Every ugly word, every dirty look, every lie they tried to spin as things started to fall apart. How my dad tried to blame it all on me being unstable. How my mom tried to make it about how hard it is to be a grandparent these days. How they claimed they didn't know it was wrong to leave two little kids alone. No one believed them. Not anymore. Even the ones who used to support them, no matter what, the older generation, the ones who always said, family is family. No matter what the crime, even they were done. The family group chat had exploded overnight. My parents were trying to backtrack, desperately sending out apologies, making excuses, begging for understanding. And one by one, people left the chat. I wasn't even in it anymore, but Lisa sent me screenshots. It was glorious. Each departure was like a small victory. Mark left first. Then Uncle Steve. Then Lisa. Then my cousin Hannah, who usually stayed out of the drama. By noon, there were only 3 people left in the group chat: my mom, my dad, and some random cousin from out of state who probably hadn't even read the messages. It was over. But I wasn't done. You see, they still had one thing tying them to me: financial ties. Their phones were still technically in my name, even though I had cancelled the service. Their RV insurance was still on my account. Their old home security system, the one they bragged about to their friends, was still billed through my bank. I spent the next hour canceling everything. Cancelled every contract. Disconnected every account. Blocked every number. When I was done, it was like I had surgically removed myself from their lives. No strings. No obligations. Nothing they could ever hold over me again. The last thing I did, the part that felt better than I ever imagined, was send an email. Just one. Effective immediately, please accept this notice that I am no longer responsible for any services or accounts related to you. Please do not contact me again. I CC'd them both. I CC'd the companies. I made sure it was official. They would have to rebuild everything on their own now. No discounts. No shortcuts. No help. They were exactly where they had put me all those years ago, when they had shown me that I was only useful to them when they needed something. Alone. And this time, there was no going back. The first week after they cut me off felt unreal. No phone calls. No emails. No sneaky Facebook posts about ungrateful kids. Just pure, clean silence. I threw myself into work, into my kids, into fixing little things around the house that I'd ignored for months. For once, there was no dread hanging over me every time my phone buzzed. No waiting for the next guilt trip or fake emergency. But I knew it couldn't last. With people like my parents, silence wasn't surrender, it was just a pause before they changed tactics. The first letter came 4 days later. Plain white envelope, no return address. Neat handwriting, the kind my mother used when she wanted to appear calm and collected. Inside, A 3-page letter about how much they missed me. How sad they were. How hard things had been since the misunderstanding. They called it a misunderstanding. Not abandonment. Not negligence. Not what it really was, cruelty. I didn't even finish reading it. I tore it up and threw it in the trash like junk mail. The next letter arrived 2 days later. This one was shorter. Angrier. Less polished. My dad's handwriting this time messy, impatient. You've made your point. Time to move on. As if I had thrown a tantrum. Like I hadn't spent years cleaning up her messes before finally saying enough. More letters followed. Each one trying a new angle. Some full of tearful apologies that admitted nothing. Some bitter, as if they were the ones who had been betrayed. Some casually slipping in comments about money, health. How expensive everything is these days. Thinly veiled hints that they were feeling the weight without me. Each time one arrived, I tore it up without reading the whole thing. If they thought they could worm their way back in with words, they didn't understand how far gone I really was. Mark texted me after a family barbecue I didn't attend. Your mom's still crying to anyone who'll listen. She says you're punishing her. Says you're breaking up the family. I didn't even bother to answer. I wasn't punishing her. I was freeing myself. And if the family was falling apart because of it, then maybe it deserved to fall apart. The letters eventually slowed down. Then they stopped. Weeks passed. I began to think they might actually stop. The house felt lighter. Quieter. My kids were happier. I slept better. I thought this was the end. I should have known better. Because the real storm wasn't in the letters. It was standing on my porch 2 months later, looking older, smaller, and more desperate than I had ever seen him before. My father. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of ordinary day that makes you think bad things are finally behind you. The kids were out back building a fort out of cardboard boxes and old lawn chairs. I was in the kitchen fixing a dripping faucet, half distracted by the sound of their laughter through the open window. For the first time in months, everything felt normal. Then came the knock. Not the doorbell. A knock. Slow. Heavy. Too deliberate to be a delivery. I dried my hands, already feeling that old, unwelcome pit forming in my stomach. Something wasn't right. When I opened the door, I froze. It was my father. For a second, I didn't even recognize him. He looked smaller somehow. His shoulders slumped. His face was thinner, paler. His hands were jammed awkwardly in his jacket pockets, as if he didn't know what to do with them. He was wearing the same leather jacket he always wore to pretend he was tougher than he was, but even that looked worn now. He didn't say anything at first. Neither did I. We just stood there in the doorway, the silence lasting longer than it should have. Finally he cleared his throat. I'm not here to argue, he said. His voice sounded harsh, as if he hadn't spoken to anyone in days. I remained leaning against the door frame. I wasn't going to make this easy. He shifted awkwardly, his eyes darting past me as if trying to catch a glimpse of something, maybe hoping to see a crack he could slip through. But there wasn't one. Then he said something I hadn't expected. Your mother left me. I blinked. For a second, I thought maybe I had misheard. My parents had spent their whole lives clinging to each other, not out of love, but because they needed someone else to blame when things went wrong. He kept talking. Packed up. Took what little money we had left. Moved to Florida. Staying with her sister now. He half laughed, but it was hollow. Guess she decided I wasn't worth the trouble after all. I didn't say anything. I just stared at him. If he was expecting me to feel sorry for him, he was in the wrong place. He shifted again, as if he wanted to leave, but couldn't quite make up his mind. I'm not here to ask for money, he said. Or to ask you to come back. I just thought you should know. Before you heard it from someone else. Another long silence. In that moment, looking at him, I realized something. He wasn't standing there because he missed me. He wasn't standing there because he realized he was wrong. He was standing there because he had no one left. And even now, broken and abandoned, he couldn't apologize. Not properly. Not completely. He wanted me to fill the hole left by my mother. To be the next caretaker of his failures. Not a chance. I took a deep breath and said the only thing I could say without lying to myself. I hope you get your life together. Then I closed the door. No shouting. No arguing. No dramatic goodbye. Just the soft click of the lock clicking into place. I stood there for a minute, hearing nothing, feeling the finality settle deep in my chest. Through the peephole, I watched him linger on the porch, staring at the door like he couldn't believe it was really closed. Like he thought maybe if he stood there long enough it would open again. But it didn't. Finally he turned and walked down the steps, his head down, his shoulders slumped. I watched until he was gone. And then I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I didn't feel empty. I just felt free. Really free. Not the shaky, guilty freedom I used to feel when I distanced myself for a few days. Not the anxious, temporary kind. The real kind. The kind you earn. I went back to the kitchen, finished fixing the faucet, then went out back where my kids were still laughing, still building, still living. They didn't even know anything had happened. And maybe that was the best part. For them, life just went on. Without the shadows. Without the chains. Without the weight of people who never deserved to be called family. I picked up a cardboard box and helped them build their fort higher. Stronger. A fortress. The kind you don't let invaders come back to. Ever again. Final update, 1 year later. Hey, thought I'd give an update. It's been about a year since everything happened: the dinner, the letters, the knock on my door. I thought that was the end of the story. Turns out it wasn't. After my dad showed up and I shut the door on him, he didn't try again. Not even once. He didn't send any more letters, didn't call. For a while, I wondered if he'd gotten the message or if he just found a new place to dump his pain. But here's where it gets weird. A few months ago, I got a call from a law firm in another state. They said they were handling some probate documents. I almost hung up, thinking it was a scam, but the lawyer mentioned my father's name. He had died. A stroke, alone in a motel outside of Tulsa. Apparently, he'd been bouncing between cheap motels and couch hopping since my mother left him. They said he left almost nothing. No will, no property, no savings. Just a box of personal effects and an envelope with my name on it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know how I felt. They offered to send me the box. I said yes. Curiosity got the better of me. It arrived a week later, a dusty cardboard thing, battered and taped like it had been run over by 3 greyhounds. Inside were a few shirts, some old receipts, a broken wristwatch, and a manila envelope with my name on the front in his handwriting. I opened it, expecting more of the same excuses, manipulation, last-minute attempts to rewrite history. But it wasn't. It was short. A page and a half. He said he knew he'd screwed up. He said he didn't expect forgiveness, didn't even think he deserved it. But he admitted, in no uncertain terms, that what they did to my children was wrong. That what they did to me over the years was worse. No blame. No if, only, or. You misunderstood. Just facts. It wasn't healing. It wasn't a movie ending. But it was the closest thing to truth he ever gave me. I sat there holding the letter for a long time, not sure what to do with it. In the end, I burned it. Not out of anger. Out of closure. Because that was all it ever needed to be, a goodbye that wasn't late, but right on time. And my mother? No idea. I haven't heard from her. I guess she's still in Florida. Maybe still playing the victim to anyone who will listen. I don't care. I got my kids. I have my peace. We just moved to a new house last month. Bigger yard, quiet neighborhood. The kind of place where the past feels like another life. Sometimes I find myself wondering how different things might have been if they just said sorry sooner. If they'd owned up to even a fraction of what they did. But then I remember people don't change unless they want to. And they never wanted to. They just wanted control. And now? They have none. And I finally have everything I really needed. Thanks to all of you who have followed this story. I didn't plan on turning my life into a thread, but writing it out has helped more than I expected. If you're dealing with a toxic family, you're not crazy. You're not cruel. And you're not alone. Sometimes leaving isn't revenge. It's salvation. Yours, John.